All right, I am going to show you today how to reduce claims by 40+%. It's something that I've done in the past. I managed 14 or so entities, separate DOT entities, and in a very short period of time, we were able to reduce our auto claims by 40+%. And a lot of people look at that like it's incredible, but really, with really good visibility and really good awareness that comes from visibility, you can improve driver behavior, driver habits, change that behavior, etc. But it's all going to come down to electronic device usage. And that can be two different things. One, the prohibition of electronic devices from a distraction standpoint, but then there's also your electronic devices that you're going to use to get that visibility, to have the awareness, to drive the improvement. So this electronic device policies 101 is going to go two different directions as we move through it. This is going to be a quick 10 or 15 minute segment. It's not going to be something long and drawn out. It's not meant to be a training. It's just something that I'm going to use to show you and to articulate to you how I've reduced my auto claims in a very short period of time by more than 40% at large entities and small entities. So let's move through this. Electronic device policies. We got 10 or 15 minutes. Going to show you something good. Electronic devices first, DOT regulations and fines, and then management responsibilities. We're not going to hit on every single bullet point in this. It's meant to be just a brief overview. You'll have the video. You can watch it anytime you want and read this. And if you want the actual PDF binder that I've created here, I'll send it to you. Let me know. And DOT regulations and fine. Texting is defined as manually entering text into or reading text from an electronic device. This includes, but is not limited to, emailing, text messages, a command or request to access a web page, engaging in any other form of electronic text retrieval or electronic text entry for future or present communication. DOT fines for drivers can be as high as $2,500 per occurrence, and for carriers, it can be as high as $11,000. Now, there's different types of distractions. You've got, even as you go down the highway, it's not all about handheld devices. You've got drivers who eat. I've seen drivers with 12-inch Jimmy John subs on the steering wheel as they drive down the road using both hands to eat their food and one knee to steer the wheel. So distraction can come from all different ways. It can come from the radio. It can come from pertinent and non-pertinent objects on the highway. It's not just all about the phones here. So you kind of have to mold your policy to whatever you want it to be. And it can only be so restrictive because drivers have to be able to function in the cab. This is kind of where they live. You don't want that functionality or their ability to function to be the main driver and what you allow them to do or not do. You want safety to be the main driver in that. And distraction is really anything that's going to take your focus off the task at hand, which is driving. That could be the radio or any of the other things I've mentioned. All right, so that's DOT regulations. You need to also outline in your policy if you're going to go above and beyond those. And one of those where I go above and beyond is right here, and Bluetooth headsets are also prohibited. I encourage that from a risk control standpoint. It's not a compliance thing. You don't have to do it. It's not part of the federal regulation that prohibits cell phone use. But I can tell you that there was a case in Florida where a local delivery company paid $14 million in a lawsuit because their driver, using hands-free technology, Bluetooth headset, was in a call, got in a phone call, heated discussion, ended up driving under the influence of emotion, and ended up hitting a car, killing some people, and they paid out $14 million. Was he legal? Absolutely. He was within the confines of the regulation, but that under the influence of emotion changed things. So do you want them to be on the call? Do you want them to be on a bad call? Probably not, but that's going to be up to you to determine because it's not in the regulation. You have to determine that by policy, but you also have to make sure that you're articulating these policies to drivers so that they understand that you mean business. This is the policies of your company, and this is how this program is going to work. All right. Policies should prohibit a driver from using handheld electronic devices for sure because that's the regulation. But remember, you have to figure out what you want to do, make that your policy, and continue to drive that. Use of handheld devices include all of these things. Programming GPS coordinates is obviously in addition to telephone and tablet. GPS coordinates should be entered before you leave. It shouldn't be done en route. Viewing videos or photos definitely shouldn't be done reaching for a device in a manner that requires the driver to maneuver so he or she is no longer in a seated driving position restrained by the seatbelt. All right, two pieces here, and this is going to go to where we're moving forward, where we're going to be at in just a second. Vehicular camera policy. One of the things that I encourage you to do is get with some legal counsel, draft a policy if you're going to have dash cams in your vehicle. And it's basically going to articulate to your driver that says, hey, we are recording you. We have video and audio recording in this vehicle at all times. So you want to make sure that you're letting your drivers know and what the outcome could be of what you find in that video. Mobile phone use policy. This basically outlines what we just talked about. What is your policy going to be in addition to the regulations, and how are you going to hold people accountable? Are you going to coach? And I encourage strongly coach, not cop, because if you try the cop mentality initially across the board, you're not really going to get a lot of buy-in from these drivers. It's very difficult. So moving forward, management responsibilities. These are going to differ by different organizations, but this is what I did with my program beginning to end. So electronic devices, especially handheld ones, cause serious distraction and can result in injury, death, and increased operating costs. Setting an example through your own safety performance is a great way to encourage staff to perform safely and effectively. When we determine our employees are operating vehicles while using electronic devices, we need to coach the employee. Remember, coach, not cop. It's really important. And that's going to also help drive the change in your culture, because transparency, trust in these systems is going to be paramount. But more than anything, they need to be able to trust their company. If they don't trust your company, it doesn't matter what system you're using, it's not going to work. Reminding them of the policy and articulating the policy and regulations as well as what they can do different in the future and the consequences of operating vehicles while distracted. All right, moving on quickly. That's the policy we talked about. That's the mobile phone policy, the acknowledgement. Moving into event management. So there's an important piece here at the end of this that I want to start with, actually, and it's this. Having visibility is key to having awareness. Awareness is crucial to prevention and improvement. Having awareness and not promoting and documenting accountability that drives improvement is an exposure problem. 100%. That's the reason you need to make sure that you have a really good event management process. Having all the telematics in the world gives you a lot of intelligence. It gives you a lot of information. It makes you aware of a lot of things that are now going on in your vehicle and outside of your vehicle that you may not have been aware of before. When you find these, deficiencies in driver behavior, you need to make sure that you're managing those deficiencies. Knowing them and doing nothing about them leaves you open to huge exposure. So I use Motive. I recommend Motive, and we're going to get into Motive and why I recommend Motive in a minute. We've got about anywhere from 5 to 6 minutes left, so we're going to blow through this. Event management process. I use Motive. I prefer Motive. I use their system. I use their dual-facing dash cams. I've used them all the way back to when they had an electronic logbook and I was driving trucks, and we were negotiating with each other at truck stops or discussing amongst ourselves at truck stops on this new electronic log thing that's going to happen. And here we are some 15 years later. All right, Motive operates using artificial intelligence to determine driver behavior and driving habits. These are noted as events. These events, admin are notified of these events when the driver has one, and they assess appropriate action based on facts. If it is determined that a written warning or termination is warranted by the event, admin should discuss with human resources and complete these tasks. If the event warrants coaching and remedial training, admin should coach the driver on behavior that led to the event and complete the telematic event and safety training acknowledgement, which would then be kept in the driver's file. The driver is required to complete event-specific remedial training designed to change driver behavior in the future. And this is really about documentation, and documentation is going to be key, because if your driver is called on the phone 167 times through Motive, you do nothing about it. On the 168th time, you're in an accident. Your driver's in an accident. He kills someone. The plaintiff's lawyer is going to come after you and ask for all this footage. And they're going to say, hey, The other 167 times that this driver was on the phone prior to the one that killed my client's family, what did you do in those cases? How did you manage their behavior? How did you try to put a stop to it? And you have to, that's what we're really focusing on when we say event management. So what I've built here is basically a training bundle. And what I used was 10 Street. So ultimately, you'd get the event notification in Motive. You'd send the driver training to their phone through the Pulse app of 10 Street. And ultimately, they would be taking these. And for distracted driving, say their behavior type was phone use. This is what your focus was. These are the topics you're going to coach them in. And this is going to be your verbal warning or written warning that we put on the telematics warning. And each one has verbiage. And the reason is with me, I had 52 terminals, 52 terminal managers in 27 states. And what we ended up finding was we had very different language on these write-ups. So we wanted consistent verbiage on the consistent type of behavior. So you're getting this event, you're going to coach them on these topics, you're going to send them 10 Street training on these, and you're going to give them a written warning in their file that says this. They're going to sign that, and they're going to say, I was coached on the following on this date at this time. So when that plaintiff lawyer asks you, a couple things that you can provide to them. Yes, we have an event management program. Yes, we coach on these things. After X amount, whether it's 3 times for a specific type of a category of event, we have an accountability program. That might be, we escalate that from a warning to a termination or something like that. So basically, you're going to document everything. And good thing about 10 Street system is, and I really like Luma as well, but haven't used them for this purpose yet. But for 10 Street, when your drivers complete this training and they pass the test, a certificate for that completion automatically goes into their file and documents that you have trained them, they have completed the training, they understood the training, and you've moved on with your life. This is what you did. Again, having visibility is key to having awareness. Awareness is crucial to prevention and improvement. Having awareness and not promoting and documenting accountability that drives improvement is an exposure problem, and I just told you how. All right, so moving on, we've got about 3 more minutes to ran through this. Coaching annotation scripts. Now, for Motive, what we typically do is this. So we've got Rob Carpenter here on my little island. We're going to come here to safety. You're going to come here. You can come to coaching first if you want. I choose not to do this, but you can click here, which is generally going to say coached. And this is going to give you kind of a high level of what is this driver's problem and how frequent is that problem, or how frequent are those problems. So you see here, Robert generated 24 coachable events that involve close following. And you can see over here, it's going to go down each one of these. And when we get to cell phone, it's probably going to blow you out of the water. But they've never been coached on this behavior before. Note that this behavior has occurred multiple times within the past month. And it's going to give you each and every one. Now, what you can do here is add your note. And one of the things that I stressed is you want consistency in all of your documents. So if they were on the phone, you're going to take your thing, you're going to copy it, take your verbiage, copy it, come back to Motive, enter it, and save it. And basically, that's what you want to do. So for me, that's kind of how I manage it inside of Motive. But there's more to that. So you can come here to events. Let's just come here and we'll select quarter to give you kind of more data. And then you can come down here. I'm focusing on cell phone usage because that is what we're talking about in terms of distraction. So you can see the dates, severity. You can watch this footage by simply clicking on it, and then it can kind of scroll through each one. So you get to see every event, and you get to coach on it. Now, another place that I like to put notes is here. So you can take this, post your notes, save it, you're done. You can also mark coached here, turns it green, and then we're going to go back to Fleet View. So that's kind of how the whole piece works in terms of event management. Under reports, you have reports that can kind of give you driver coaching effectiveness, driver safety performance report, safety summary for each driver. It's really a good system, and these aren't really cookie cutter reports. You can get customized reports from Motive, and it really helps you drill down on these things and focus on what you specifically need to focus on for what you need and what the driver needs. So we will move on from that and get back to my report. This is the script. That's what I give to all of my drivers. To all of my managers to coach these things. And then you have the telematic event review. This is where you're going to document what did you do for this event. And that's key if you end up having to go to court and they want to know what you did to manage the events that the driver had. Lastly, event warning, employee warning notice. So this is, hey, more from HR. Hey, we notified you. We've coached you 3 times. We're moving to a warning notice per our policy. And the next time you come to see us with a same event, you're probably going to be terminated. All right. So keys here. Visibility is important. I recommend Motive all day long. And it's not just because they have this, highly effective system that promotes a lot of visibility. It's the clarity of the imagery. It's the accuracy of the AI, because a lot of people focus on price. And one of the things that I want people to really think about when they look at price is the accuracy, because one of the things that I found when I was a client of Samsara was we were paying someone 80 to 120 hours a week to manage events for accuracy. Someone sat there and had to watch Samsara event videos to make sure that the AI was detecting the event as it was detected. It typically, I would say 67, 68% is what we figured out that it wasn't accurate. Motives was high 90 percentile. So you have to figure in that labor cost of monitoring those events for accuracy. So think about those types of things. Trial these units, get as many of these units as you can, whether you're going to use Netrodyne or Samsara or Motive. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Motive. I switched from Samsara to Motive. I've used every system out there. So again, encourage Motive. This is how you're going to manage these events, and you got to do it if you're trying to limit your exposure. All right. If you have any questions, go to carpentercompliance.com and send me an email at robcarpenter@carpentercompliance.com, and I'll get in touch with you and answer any questions you might have. Thanks.